unusual moment. We're doing the April pre-board meeting tonight, as we'll do the regular board business meeting next Wednesday night in a Zoom set of windows. Gallery. I don't even know what I'm looking at. But we have to keep moving. We're in the middle of this pandemic. It's starting to ramp up in Rensselaer County a bit. It's starting to ramp up in the town. We have 19 people in town have tested positive. One has passed away. And so we're all distancing, and we have to keep distancing, because truth be told, if you're following the numbers, it's working. Things would be so much worse and so uncontrollable if we weren't doing what we're doing. So in the spirit of distancing, here we are. We hope the YouTube connection is working and you could watch it. If you have comments, you can send them to the town on Facebook. You can send them however by email. We won't be able to answer them live while we're here. So what we're going to do tonight is, before we do the regular pre-board meeting of going through the agenda items one by one for next week, we're going to do two workshops. The first workshop we're going to do is on the natural resource inventory that was adopted by this town board, and how the workshop's going to consider how a natural resource inventory, particularly this one, can feed into the update of the comprehensive plan, which we have going on. We have with us Jackie Hakes and Andrew Gilchrist from MJ Engineering. They're the consultants who've been leading the project. We have Adam Yagelski, our Director of Planning and Zoning, with us. Dan Fiacco, our Commissioner of Public Works, is here. David Gruenberg, our lawyer, and of course you've already heard the melodious voice of Ellen Pangburn. So before we get into the workshop, I want the town clerk, we've made a couple of adjustments today in operations and procedures. So Ellen, would you just briefly go over those?
Sure. Things have been, moving along. If any residents, are still needing some business from us, even though town hall has been closed, until further notice, the following services have been suspended due to COVID-19. Including any issuance of a marriage license, notary services have been suspended, and any peddler's permit. General business, including any transfer station permits or punch cards, are still available. Handicap tags, I've been mailing those out. I've had a handful of requests for Hudson Valley certificate of residency forms. And dog license renewals, and also new licenses. All of this is being done via phone call and email, and people are emailing me the necessary papers that they need for me to or checks to provide them with a permit or the certificate of residency. So it's working. I'm again via phone call or email. We're making it work, and I'm getting the necessary documents to mail things back to any residents. So there's further information. These updates will be on our website probably by tomorrow. And again, if I can be of any assistance to anyone, please reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I forgot to introduce Dahlia Zarowitz is with us too. She's our planner. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Jackie Hakes, who's leading the project, to. My wife is telling me nobody can hear me, but Adam, do you? No, it's just behind in timing. Okay, we're good. We're good. I'm hoping no one can hear me. What we're trying to do tonight is I want the town board to begin the process of immersing itself in the key concepts and principles of the updated comprehensive plan. The steering committee's done a great job. Adam has done a great job. Jackie and Andrew have been sensational. Public participation has been first rate. Everything is going the way it's supposed to go, but in a very short period of time, very few months, this is going to come as a draft to the town board, and we're going to have to adopt it. What I want to do is begin the process of immersing this board in that plan, so that when it comes to us, we're not unaware of it. We're not not in tune with the major recommendations. I don't want us to be in a position where we get a draft and we feel some need to dismantle it. What I'd really like to have happen is get everybody on the same page, talk these things through, begin the process. And so when the draft plan comes to the town board, we'll be in better position. We'll be sensitized to the conversation. So first, Jackie, can you talk about how the natural resource inventory has influenced what you guys have done so far?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Jack, and thank you to all of the town board members and town staff for inviting us to participate in the workshop. We certainly did not think it would be in this manner, but we're glad that technology is working so that we can all be together. With regard to the natural resources inventory, that really has been a very valuable resource and tool for our work in the comprehensive planning process in a number of ways. Number one, it provides a really amazing existing conditions status of the natural resources and habitat that exist within your community. A lot of times we have to generate that when we come into a community and try and understand that. One of the great things about the existence of your NRI and how recent it was done, that effort was done, is that we could just take that and start folding that into the discussions and using that to inform the conversation around the future of your community. Specifically, what came out of that, and we had a specific a committee meeting that was devoted to understanding the NRI. So there was a whole session about the NRI at one of our committee meetings so that all the committee members could understand the value of that resource. But what came out of that and what we have heard and supported through a variety of engagement activities with the community is that natural resources and the health of the environment within the community is something that is valued very highly. And so as a result, there is a guiding principle that is being proposed through this process that does focus around natural resources and the environment. In addition to that, as we get into further discussion about the future land use map later on this evening, you will see that the discussion of future land uses was informed by information that is in the natural resources inventory with regard to unfragmented forest and steep slopes and those types of resources that were called out and identified in the NRI. Additionally, the Natural Resources Inventory Committee had identified a series of recommendations that they felt would help to further support the protection of these natural resources in the community. And so the committee is embracing those recommendations, and ultimately I do think you will see several of those recommendations proposed in the draft comprehensive plan for the community to consider as well. Those are a few of the highlights of how we have seen the NRI help inform the comprehensive planning process. I'm not sure, Adam or Andrew, if you have other things to add to that.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jackie, that that summary of where we have been is right on point. I think the the NRI, what it really does is provide an inventory of what's out there. So it doesn't it's in that regard, it's a science-based, data-driven exercise. Primarily it was oriented toward gathering many existing data sets from a variety of sources, both local, state, and national. Some local data were developed, like the historic resources data set. So what the comp plan, what the NRI does is provide that existing conditions picture, but it doesn't tell the town what exactly to do with those resources. It says what's out there and what might be important, but it doesn't. And the Natural Resources Work Group also did, as Jackie mentioned, advance some recommendations. But But what the comp plan, the steering committee, the team that Jackie's leading, and the board have an opportunity to do is take the NRI and fashion it into a framework for decision making. And the comp plan process provides a really ideal vehicle for that because of the extensive public engagement and the broad remit of the process, and also the legal standing in the New York State town law. The zoning has to be in accordance with the comp plan, and which we're going to talk about in a little bit. If the zoning and other recommendations are informed by the NRI, it gives it that much. It provides that really key opportunity to do that. And I think there's a couple of things to mention here. I think there's an opportunity to set priorities for important resources. There's, I think, some procedural items that Jackie got into about where we've been and how it should influence the comp plan. Also about how the NRI, nuts and bolts type things, about how it should be incorporated into the comp plan, like as an appendix, for example. And then I think, the one of the key deliverables out of the comp plan, which we're going to get to later on, is a series of recommendations and an implementation matrix. And the NRI, the comp plan has there's an opportunity for the town to make recommendations around various strategies to advance the NRI. So those might be regulatory, like zoning or conservation subdivision requirements. There might be recommendations around partnering with local land trusts or other entities around protection of some of those resources and addressing them. Opportunities to partner around education, to create recreational opportunities, and then also some capital investment ideas, like, for example, when DPW goes to replace culverts, there's grant money out there to reduce impediments to fish and other aquatic organisms. So, where those priority riparian corridors and ecologies are, which the NRI shows, can help figure out, okay, what type of culvert can we get grant money for it, that kind of thing. So, and I think with the final thing to kind of mention here is with the CAC, there's a real opportunity to give that group kind of marching orders or a framework that the CAC can then go ahead and implement. So it can hit the ground running when, if and when it is created and formed and all of that. So that, I don't know, Andrew, if you want to add anything to that as well.
No, that all sounds good.
Okay, I think first off, for people, if you're watching this, the CAC is the Conservation Advisory Council that's being proposed. Tonight we were supposed to hold a public hearing to get input about the local law that is required to form and empower a Conservation Advisory Council. One thing I want to say here for everybody is the NRI, the Natural Resource Inventory, is one of the best pieces of work I have seen since I took this office. It is a brilliant, brilliant study. I thought I knew something about this town. It put nuance and texture and depth to everything that I know about this town. And when you think about, later we'll talk about future land uses, you think about open spaces, or you think about, water courses. We have, down to the nth degree, we have cataloged, we've inventoried all of this stuff. And the way that Jackie described this seamlessly forming into a comprehensive plan, which then the goal is to have that form into a new zoning map, and after that a new GEIS document. These are all of a piece. And what is really important to me is that this natural resource inventory is the foundation of this. And so therefore, it's not just great data. It's not just a template of the town that is so sophisticated, but it's a statement by this board that we're going to protect and conserve every natural resource we can. And that, Regeneron's booming. There's so much development going on. There has to come a point where that pauses or slows, and everything else has to be taken into consideration. And that's what we're doing here. We do not want this town to grow out beyond itself. We want smart growth, but we want to preserve and protect natural resources to the maximum extent possible. So that's kind of my sense of it. But I do have to tell you, if you have not immersed yourself in that NRI and those 25 maps, it will repay every minute that you put into it. I read about eels and things that I did not care one whit. Okay, did not care. They're now my eels. Okay, they're now part of who we are in my brain, and so my map of the town is so much different and so much improved, because how can you plan if you don't know where you are? So I just want to throw that out there. So any board members, questions, comments?
Yeah, I have. I just had to unmute myself, Jack. I guess one of the questions I had, and I have to apologize because I, to date, haven't had the opportunity to see the full, the full Monty, if as it were, that you just described, Jack, in terms of the documentation. But I guess one of the questions I guess I'm wondering is, I have seen some NRIs in the past, so I'm not completely oblivious to what it probably contains in terms of format. But I guess my question to either Jack or Andrew would be, is the NRI envisioned to drive dramatic changes? And I know that's kind of subjective when I say dramatic changes, but drive dramatic changes from our current town land uses. That is to say, when we go forward with the comp plan, and then you were to contrast that with, well, I guess you could juxtapose it against a couple different things. But let's say you took the current comprehensive plan that's obviously dated, and you juxtapose those two. To the extent that the NRI is going to have an impact, I'm just kind of wondering how strong of a contrast would we likely see when this comes together.
Sure. Thank you, Rick. I'll take a stab at that first. I'd like to answer in a couple of different ways. Number one, the future land use is part of the discussion that is ongoing, not only with you, but it's also something we need to go back to the community with and talk about that. So there's nothing that has been set in stone yet with regard to the future land use that may be influenced and quite honestly has been influenced by the natural resources inventory. So that's my first kind of caveat, if you will. To directly answer your question, based on where we are right now in our understanding of the existing conditions that are laid out in the NRI, as well as what we have been hearing from the over 700 people that replied to the online survey and all of those that have been coming out to the public meetings and our committee, the future land uses are not a dramatic change from what is happening right now. But where the change will be, or where I anticipate the change will be, that will be influenced by the NRI and supported by the fact-based information in the NRI, are in the specific recommendations that will support those future land uses. Adam talked about a handful of the tools that can be utilized to protect the resources that are identified in the NRI, such as conservation subdivision, which is an approach to a residential subdivision that allows the residential subdivision to occur, but it focuses that the homes in an area, a much more compact area, to allow for habitat to continue. And so you're not fragmenting habitat in an area, or to allow for that riparian buffer to continue to occur and expand. So I think that the change that you will see in the future moving forward in the community will be in those tools that the comprehensive plan is likely to be recommending for regulatory implementation. Does that address your question?
So it really does. If I could just throw out an example, and you can kind of correct me on it. But if I had to interpret what you just said, would the notion of, say, of developers in general, whether you're talking residential or non-residential development, which is obviously covers a host of property uses. But if a developer was to come in and put forward make application for a site plan, would the idea that going forward, we, the town, would be, let's say, requiring that the developer disturb sites less, let's just say, and that that certain natural character that would say heretofore be, where they just come through and basically just level a site and go through it and then just kind of build from the ground up, as they say, without any consideration to some of the more natural characteristics of what's out there now, throughout the landscape in the town. Is that sort of generally maybe one of the basic tenets, if you will, that would ride along with what we'd be looking forward to for developers in terms of what they'd be allowed to do prospectively with property use?
That could very well be, and I think that the key to that is the location of where that example site plan that you described might be located within the town. So within the town, there are areas that are already fairly developed, and so when you're talking about the natural resources that may still remain, it's a question of are they, what level do you want to protect those that might be fragmented or that might have already been disturbed in some way, versus other areas of the town that are much more undisturbed. Habitat is much more intact. There are steep slopes that have not been cleared. There are still very scenic rural views that exist that were contemplated. So in those areas, the town may want to consider a little more careful look and more context-sensitive design for any development that were to occur. And the site plan review process is certainly, and or the subdivision process is certainly one mechanism to be able to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. Would you envision that at the end of the day that the injection, if you will, of the NRI, into both comprehensive plan as well as further down the line when we revamp our zoning, would you envision that this is going to throw onto developers an additional cost in terms of just overall development? Do you think that's something that, or do you not think that?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, Rick, but I think my perspective is that if a landowner and or developer know what the rules of the game are before they start playing the game, it should not have any substantial additional costs, right? They will build that cost into the overall project, theoretically. The other side of that is because the NRI exists and there is all of this, and Adam was correct, it's science-based, it's based on solid databases of information that are respected databases. It's all right there in one package. So if I'm a developer and I'm coming in and I know that that is important to the town in terms of context-sensitive design, and I know that this is something that exists, I'm going to use that as a resource myself to understand, what might be on that site and how I might think about designing a project for that site. For example, if there are some steep slopes and I need to do some pretty significant cut and fills, well, there's a cost there. If I can understand what the landscape is and work with that landscape, there might be some cost savings from a grading perspective, right?
Sure.
So that's the level of detail, kind of getting into kind of the implementation piece of this. Backing up to the comprehensive plan perspective, what we want to understand is, are these things important? And if they are, we want to establish the framework and recommendations for the town to consider the right tools to be implementing and moving forward with.
Sure. And I just want, you and particularly my fellow board members to know that I pose that question. There's no, in my mind, if this would be a cost factor, it's more of an FYI for me. I have in my mind, no reticence in, I totally see the value, obviously, in the NRI. And, if this, obviously becomes a relevant factor for developers, then so be it. I know we have to consider, as we all know, we have to consider our GEIS fees as sort of the part of the economic package when developers come before us. And I guess part of me wonders whether a developer would, start balking over. Of course, nobody wants to pay fees. Obviously, that's understandable. I kind of wondered whether, when a developer looks at any of the factors that it has to look at for development, it considers everything, and it would consider any costs associated with anything at all, including, but certainly not limited to, the NRI. So I was just kind of wondering whether this would possibly end up meaning that a developer would have one more reason to maybe pose some objection to some of the larger process that the town has for processing, its site plan applications. But no, thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate that detail.
I think one of the important things about that conversation we just had is you see how the mechanics of these things are interrelated. The way that we can conceptualize the natural resource inventory. How do you operationalize it? Well, one of the things we haven't talked about is the Conservation Advisory Council, because that's something that can also help hold boards and the planning office and everyone, the supervisor and everyone else, hold our feet to the fire on this stuff. So the way Jackie described that, you can see that the mechanics of this are really important. So other board members want to say anything?
I have a more specific question.
Okay.
It's in the section of the NRI that has to do with water body impairment and quality of water and tracking the quality of water over time. It references some citizen science programs such as WAVE and the Citizen Statewide Lake Assessment Program. And one of the recommendations was for us as a town to participate in the programs such as those two that are mentioned in it. And how do we participate? Like, what does that entail? And it helps to track. I know it helps to track the quality of water over time in the town also. So people would be assisting with data collection and things like that. But how do we What would be involved as a town? For Jackie, I guess.
Sorry, I was unmuting. Got to get quicker at that. I'm not certain exactly what the next step would be for the town. Aside from, I think the very important first step is the CAC, because then you would have a committee that is devoted and knowledgeable about this, that could be a consistent voice to communicate with partners about how you would be doing this. And so there's consistency over time, particularly when you're tracking water quality. You want to make sure that there's that consistency and that there's the longevity there. And I think the town is certainly heading in that direction with your discussion about creating the CAC.
Yeah. And this conversation will feed into that, because that's one of the next steps we'll take as soon as we can figure out how to do a public hearing in these troubled times. Okay, do you want to move on to future land uses?
I had one question, and it kind of leads into future land uses, and I'm just putting this out to my fellow board members. Kind of going through the natural resources inventory, there's a lot of areas that they're kind of recommending first to really look at, first to really focus on, particularly some of our forest areas to kind of preserved. We have some historical sites. You know, for us to think about, is there anything that we want to put into the future land use to preserve some of that, or maybe identify those specific areas in some way?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of putting it out there. It was one of the things that kind of jumped out at me when I was going through the NRI.
Bridget, that is really a perfect segue, because the first thing we have to do is understand what this draft of future land uses is. And then as soon as we have Jackie address that, Bridget, I think your question is absolutely the question that kicks in. Okay, so Jackie, can you just explain, because as I understand it, the zoning map, when it's created, has to conform with the comprehensive plan. So there has to be a conformance between future land uses in the plan and the zoning map, but conformance is not the same as equivalence. And what you have is you have this general schematic of future land uses, which then has to be nuanced and made much more site-specific, etc. But Jackie, rather than have me search for the right answer here, how about we start with you explaining the relationship between the future land uses and the zoning map that has to be done.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You were right on target, Jack. Under town law, section 272A, the comprehensive plan that outlines the steps for developing your comprehensive plan, and your zoning ordinance must be consistent with your comprehensive plan. Right. And so the future land use map essentially sets the framework for future land uses in your community that support the vision that the community has established. And we do have a draft vision that we have been working through with the community. And so that's kind of that's what we're utilizing as our end goal, if you will, over the next 20, 30 years. And so the future land use map is intentionally vague. It is not parcel specific, and it is not zoning. However, again, it does set the framework for the implementation of your comprehensive plan. One step will be to implement and update your zoning ordinance to ensure that it is consistent with your comprehensive plan. So these future land use categories that we'll talk through are not zoning districts. There is not a list of permitted or prohibited uses that are associated with these. They are general types of land uses that we are envisioning occurring over the next several years, 10, 20 years within your community. The detail of permitted uses, setbacks, other area and bulk standards, prohibited uses, etc., would come at the time of your zoning update. Okay. We call it a bubble map internally because they're bubbles of color to help identify various different types of land uses. That is the highly technical term for the future land use map.
Can I ask a question, because I'm not really familiar with what a comprehensive plan looks like? When you do the comprehensive plan and you're sort of setting forth the general goals and the general picture of the town as it's going to be in the future, do you use the same kind of language that you find in a zoning ordinance? In other words, would you say, well, in this area, we want to have more commercial development, more retail, we want to have single family? Would you say something as specific as single family residential? In other words, is it sort of a fuzzy zoning map, or do you use the same terminology as in a zoning?
Well, it's more vague than zoning, certainly. And I do want to point out that in terms of the overall comprehensive plan, this is one component, the future land uses. There is a whole host of other recommendations that might not be related to land use that will be included within the comprehensive plan to also support the vision. But the land use is a pretty critical one. And so the way that we describe the categories or types of land uses that are in the proposed future land use map now, those descriptions, as you start to transition into, should this be, once the draft is developed and finalized, and should this town board approve this and adopt the comprehensive plan and move into the zoning update, the intent is that the district that are described in your zoning ordinance could be developed from the description of the future land use category. So in a lot of zoning ordinances, for each zoning district, there tends to be a purpose and intent, right? That kind of describes the character of that zoning district and what the purpose and the intent of that intends to be. The description of the land use category in the future land use map could help to inform that purpose and intent in your zoning district. So that's one way that the two can be connected. But the specifics, again, of the zoning are not included in the comprehensive plan. We want to provide enough direction in the comprehensive plan so that it's clear what the intent is for a particular corridor or area of the town. But we don't want to be so specific that it ties the town to something that they must include in the zoning so that it's consistent, right? We want to leave some flexibility so when you get to the discussion of parcel-based zoning, you have some flexibility there.
Yeah, it's necessary for the plan to achieve coherence as a document and as a set of concepts. So
Jackie,
go ahead, Rick.
I'm sorry, Jack. So Jackie, it's really, the comp plan is really more of a qualitative document rather than a quantitative document where your quantification gets into your bulk regulations and all that minutia. Is that kind of generally, is that a fair statement, or?
Yes, in terms of the future land use, if there is something very detailed that the community feels very strongly about, then sure, we can include more specificity within the comprehensive plan to ensure that in fact that does translate directly into the zoning. It's a fine balance, and it depends on what the topic is, what the area is, and how you wish to proceed.
Jackie, let me ask a question that starts to bring us back to what Bridget asked. What was the public's role, the surveys, the public sessions, in determining this draft of future land uses? How much of the public input was relevant to what you ultimately did?
Sure, I would say it was extremely relevant, and it was one of several factors that kind of went into the discussion of the future land use map, the draft that you've been provided. We had two very, very well attended public workshops, interactive public workshops, where the first one was a little more general, but we did ask a lot of different questions to understand what people want, what some of the challenges were, and we had some mapping. So we're trying to understand where people are going or not going and why. The second public workshop, if you recall, was much more specific. We had the speed round tables and we asked specific questions. And that was so that we could get a better understanding of future land uses to be able to support that vision. Additionally, we got, and I just asked Andrew to text me, we had 783 people respond to the online survey.
Oh, that's great.
There were several questions in that survey that were specifically tailored to get responses to help us understand what the thoughts and values are of the community are about around certain land uses and where they are located. So that was really helpful to us as well. We've gotten a handful of emails from folks throughout as well that get folded in. But it has been important in helping us shape this, as has the committee. Honestly, the committee is a broad representation of the community. And they're talking to their neighbors and, they're living in the community. So that they see things as well and have been a great resource.
Well, and one of the things that I could be wrong about this, as we discussed a little bit earlier, one of the things about this draft is that it looks a lot like the way things are now. And one of the things I think that I'm feeling about this exercise is that people are happy in general with this kind of scenario. But what they really need and what they've been demanding in this town is that we stick to it, that we set up processes, procedures, etc., so that the eastern part of town, for example, that's rural and low density, stays that way. In this town, there's always a feeling that if the right person came along with the right project, they'd be allowed to do something over here. Well, what we're trying to do is set it up so that this vision, which the people of East Greenbush seem to be comfortable with, is operationalized in both correctly and in Adam's shop, that the procedures, the forms, the fees, everything comes together to make sure that this happens. Because to Bridget's question, I mean, the eastern part of town, I mean, we're looking at preserving such an important part of the character of this town. And as I've said this before, a gentleman in my first month in office came in and he slammed his hand on my table and he said, I got only one thing to say to you. Do not make East Greenbush into East Concrete. And I never forgot. He walked out and I got it. He's right. And a lot of people feel that way. So the way these uses are distinguished here, it looks very familiar to me.
And it is. Yeah.
And again, Jackie, as you said before, the way that the plan, both the recommendations and the implementation matrix and all that, is how we make this real.
Mm-hmm.
So, any of the other board members want to talk about the future land uses? Have anything to say?
Yeah, I guess, Jack, like you had kind of insinuated, we want to keep the green in East Greenbush, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a better way to put it. Yep. All right.
I just have one last question, if I could pose that to Jackie and/or Andrew. When I went through primarily page 1 of this document, I noticed 3 or 4 statements that kind of jumped out. Really, just some sections of some of these statements. There's one where it talks about representing the intended uses desired or anticipated. Another one said general guides for future zoning. Another was reflective vision for the community in the future. And then the last thing I noted was community vision and guiding principles. So, when I'm reading that, the first question that came to my mind, Jackie, was what when you look at the the overall future land use areas, okay, the delineation and the descriptions were based on what?
Mhm.
What served as the basis, if you will, for, for really these delineations and the descriptions that kind of follow, in the rest of the document?
Sure. They were based on a couple of things. Number one, what is existing, right? So we need to understand and take into consideration what is already built and what is already existing, and think about how that might evolve over time, or if it is reflective now of what we're hearing the vision is for the community, right? So in some instances, it is reflective of what exists now. We couple that with the aspiration of what could be moving forward in those areas. And we also try to consider the reality of what's going on physically within these areas as well. Recognizing, for example, the area along Columbia Turnpike, which that kind of linear land use, which really captures the frontage of Columbia Turnpike. The reality is those are not very deep parcels, right? And so taking into consideration some of the reality of how something, particularly in an area that has been to date discussed in terms of reactivation and encouraging development to occur there, so that in the eastern part of town and along the River Road area where there's some scenic views and steep slopes, perhaps that's where some of the conservation activities. So it's a combination of different things that went into the development of those descriptions.
Okay.
Right. I was really just kind of wondering, like I said, in terms of the basis for, what's going to essentially bear out in contrast going forward. Are there, when you look at this, is there some connection to, are there any data points that tie into, I'll use the term, the market, okay, and what trends are out there among developers of real estate, and what their preferences are, both in property use and in terms of site designs and so forth? Are those factors taken into consideration? I'm just trying to, and again, I'm just asking it because I'm just wondering myself if there is any such relevance at all,
It's absolutely relevant. And short answer, yes, they have, to the extent that we've been able to date. And yes, they will be. So, internally, we have our work sessions. So it's not just Andrew and I that you see here, but we have a series of colleagues that are, engineers and some too that support the development community. So they have kind of that practical knowledge. So we have internal discussions about these on our team. More importantly, once we have not yet introduced this future land use map to the community and to the public. And so we wanted to make sure that the committee was comfortable with this and felt that it reflected the vision and what we've heard from the community, and that you as a town board also understand and are comfortable that this reflects what we've been hearing from the community. The next step in the process is to have that conversation. We have a focus group that we are hoping to be scheduling. It might take a different format than what we had originally intended, given our current circumstances with social distancing. But that focus group was going to be targeted on the Columbia Turnpike area, because that's where the most intense development is contemplated as far as the future land use map. And have a conversation with folks about that and get some input about that around this future land use map and have those discussions to your point, to hear what folks think within the development community as well. As it is important, those are the folks that are kind of on the ground once this gets adopted and hopefully implemented into your zoning ordinance. That it's important that everybody is aware of what it means.
Adam, why don't you take us out here by just explaining next steps, where this goes from here?
Yeah, I gotta unmute myself. Sorry, not too quick on the draw there. This Jackie's team is going to take the conversation tonight and the most recent discussion with the CPSC, the steering committee, and work that into a draft and work that into one aspect of the draft plan, which they are already working on right now. There are a number of other elements, as we've talked here a little bit tonight, that around recommendations and some technical investigation items, like what Jackie mentioned, the 9 and 20 focus group, and some housing related items and transportation, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the next step, is the draft comprehensive plan, which will go back to the committee, and then that public workshop that Jackie mentioned. Jackie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Adam, you've got it on target, and I just want to let everybody know that there is one more at the committee level. One more public meeting, which will be also a formal public hearing for the draft comprehensive plan, and the public will have a chance to view that in advance, and then the comprehensive plan draft, once it's complete, gets forwarded to you as a town board, and then there's another opportunity for public input from a public hearing perspective, and that's the procedure that is laid out in town law for the adoption of a comprehensive plan.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dahlia. I think if you don't want to sit in for the rest of the meeting, we understand. Adam's in the pilot seat tonight, so he's stuck for a little bit.
No, that's okay. I'll stay.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, but before you guys, Jackie, before you guys go though, thank you for this. Thank you for the work you've done on this. You guys are doing a really, really good job with this. And we really appreciate it. For the board, the next thing for us is the CAC, the Conservation Advisory Council. You have Tina's final draft of what the local law look like. We got to review it. We got to reschedule the public hearing. I think by next Wednesday's business meeting, we'll come up with at least a projected time where we might be able to have that public hearing. And we want to get to that. But I hope this, for the board members, I hope this sensitizes you to some of the process issues and the structural issues of a Conservation Advisory Council. So when you start reviewing that draft in depth, you'll see part of this. I'd also recommend that you reread the Natural Resources Work Group recommendations. And Adam, why don't you email those to everyone again?
Will do.
You don't have to do it to me because I got mine again yesterday. But I think that would help everyone. But Jackie, thank you so much. Andrew, thank you so much. You guys are doing great. We're so glad we hired you. Seriously.
Thank you. We're glad to be working with you.
Yeah, stay safe, guys.
Okay, have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, where we're going from here is we're going to start the pre-board meeting, and we'll start with comments from the counselors. Counselor Tierney.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, it's nice to virtually see everyone. We're living through a very difficult time, and I'm certainly not eloquent enough to adequately express my admiration and my gratitude for those who we now know are essential workers in our town and through the region and through the country. This experience has certainly made us aware that bravery comes in many forms and through many small and large acts. We've seen some really incredible acts of generosity and kindness to alleviate some of the stress and uncertainty that all of us are feeling. And for the first time, some of us in our community are in need. And, I'm really pleased to see the statewide and countywide supports for food banks and those tiers of supports to address our emotional needs, whether it's mindfulness or more in-depth mental health support or, very serious domestic violence support issues that are happening in our community. So in my family, we have been very lucky. We are all healthy. We're working very hard to find the bright spots. We appreciate the acts of generosity that we see. We love the kids' rainbows in our neighborhoods and the teddy bears in our windows. So we're trying to find the opportunities in this challenge, and we will certainly continue to stay home. We're enjoying some family time. We're enjoying family dinners, a slower pace, card games, and I was the big winner last night, which my kids will not admit to, but I was. But, we look forward to a better normal.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I want to echo what Tina had said, and put out thank you to all of our first responders here in town and all of those who are putting it all on the front line for the greater good of our community. I mean, I feel grateful and honored to be a part of our community. I feel safe because of everyone pulling together and keeping us protected. I want to also give a shout out to some of our local businesses and eateries who are giving meals to our police officers and dispatchers and EMTs and emergency medical services and other healthcare providers who are dealing with the COVID-19 testing. Just thanking people who are serving in some capacity, whether it's providing direct services or supporting those who are providing direct services. We have an awesome team in East Greenbush, a team of volunteers and responders, and it's amazing. Everyone's keeping each other safe and helping out. And I just also want to thank people for social distancing. That's also a necessary component. And I also want to mention that Rensselaer County has a Facebook page, Rensselaer County Health and Human Services. And that page has some resources available. I mean, it's a nice summary of resources. There's food resources. There's resources for emotional health. It gives a lot of hotlines, such as the Rensselaer County Mental Health Crisis Line for people with just that are feeling a lot of worry or anxiety. You can call the hotline. It's all of these are 24 hours, 7 days a week hotline. Rensselaer County has a COVID-19 hotline to ask questions. People want to call and just ask general questions. And New York State Office of Mental Health also has a 24-hour hotline for emotional support and confidential for people who might be experiencing increased anxiety. So there are resources available for people who might need some extra support or who might want some extra education in any of those areas. And again, thank you all it's good to see everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Councilor Matters?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I guess I'd like to I guess what I'd like to say involves sort of panning back a little bit and looking at sort of some of the broader implications, I guess, of this really awful experience. And what I mean by that is really with respect to government. we all, I think everyone as a citizen, as a resident, we all have probably a pretty bland view of what government does, what it should do, what it doesn't do. But it's during a crisis like this that we all, I think, really have a new appreciation, a newfound reliance on the function of government in general, whether it's at the federal level, at the state level, and of course right here in our town. And I have to say that given the level of uncertainty, the worry that we all feel, the anxieties that we're feeling right now, I have to say that I'm very, I feel an element of pride, I think, with respect to how this state is handling this situation, and how you're sort of manning your post, Jack, every day down at town hall, and giving everyone, I think, a sense of assurance that is so badly needed right now. Mm-hmm. So I've never, really had the perspective that I have right now on, just how important government is. And it's certainly, at this point in time, it couldn't be more important. It couldn't be more important in everyone's lives, I think. Yeah. And, it makes you think a little philosophically about your life and about how we all live with each other and just life generally. But I have to say again, we're in a scary time right now, and I am glad that I'm glad the five of us are together, and we're doing what hopefully is expected of us. And again, Jack, thank you for everything you're doing.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Councilor Fritz?
Thank you, Jack. I do agree with the other councilors that we are going through such an uncertain time. Jack, you have been phenomenal in your leadership, and that has really helped, I think, especially here in the town. We have had wonderful leadership roles from you, as well as we're getting some great feedback from both our county and our state leaders, and I think that helps give us some good guidance. Like Tina, I'm finding that we are enjoying the fact that we are slowing down a little bit and spending more time with family that is not as a rush time. I think it's a good chance for us to reevaluate our lives in general, because I think we tend to get very wrapped up in having to do different things in this time of drawing back from those things and really focusing on what's important, our family, and what we need to do for our community going forward. I think is going to end up making us a stronger community in the long run. And what we're seeing from our first responders, from our volunteers, there's just so much good out there, and it is showing how strong of a community we have. From everything from some of the parades that are being planned for by the different fire districts, to the food pantries that are being stocked by all of us, or anyone who's able to helping out with all of our local restaurants and businesses as much as we're able, from buying gift certificates and supporting our small businesses. There's just so much good out there that is happening, and it is important to focus on that and to focus on our families and keeping everyone healthy and social distancing. And I have never seen so many people walking in my neighborhood. It is wonderful, because I'm getting to know people that I had no idea were in our area, because we are all so busy in our day-to-day lives that we don't see each other. And I am still working full time, but I am still seeing people out all times of day and night, and it's wonderful. So that is what I have to say, and I just hope everyone continues to social distance as long as this is necessary and stays healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Can we have a word from the town clerk?
Sure. Thank you, Jack. Yes, this is such an incredible, challenging time and very scary time for all of us that none of us have ever, everyone in our community in this country have never experienced before. And it truly is amazing to see how people are working through almost the, very quick changes. I have 2 college kids home and, online schooling, positive note of that, they actually do miss going to class. And other than extracurricular activities and baseball all coming to a halt, my heart goes out to all the seniors. But they're really, the signs that you're seeing throughout the community, in people's windows. And like Bridget said, that in my neighborhood, I have, seen new neighbors that I've never seen before. And just families truly spending quality time together. And like Tina and Bridget both mentioned, I've put my kids to work in the kitchen. My daughter more willing than my son. We've kind of given him some tasks, but the family dinners are, that was always very important to my family and I as the kids were growing up. And they start getting involved in things and it's, you don't have the time for it. So, but seeing all the hearts and the rainbows and throughout, driving down 9 and 20, the local businesses, not just homes, it's everyone's trying to find the positive and, the porch photos. And Jack, you've been, communication is key in so many aspects. And we really did, handle this at the beginning, as we could. And I commend everyone, nurses, doctors, anyone in the medical field. My heart goes out to them for what they've been going through. But you see the happy times for them with the police and firefighters acknowledging them and all that they're doing to keep us all healthy. So it's unfortunate times, but there is positive things that do come through.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.
First, just a piece of business. The county is looking for volunteers to help with Meals on Wheels. If anybody is watching and is interested in doing that, the phone number to call is 518-270-2955. That's 518-270-2955. I just want to say a couple of things. One, just to reassure people that the town government is still moving. We're still taking care of business. We're social distancing. Town hall is closed, but 2 people in particular need to be singled out here. One is Dan Fiacco, who's Commissioner of Public Works, and the other is the Chief of Police, Elaine Rudzinski, because they don't get to go away. They don't get to go home. The wastewater treatment plant has to be open. The transfer station has to be open. Roads have to be fixed. Things have to be done. Danny hasn't had a moment's rest. On top of everything else, we have guys home who are getting paid and not working, and that drives Danny nuts just on principle because everybody should be working. But just let me give the board first off, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Chief. I worry about our police officers every day now. A woman in Walmart yesterday spitting at people, yelling she's positive, and our guys have to go get her. That's a hard job. Policing is always a hard job, but right now it's very, very hard. So I commend the chief. I commend Danny because these guys have been great. But what's going on in town hall for the board's information as well as everyone else's is the assessor, Sue McCarthy, is preparing the assessment roll. The preliminary roll is due on May 1st. That's right on course. It will be done on time. The water and sewer office, Stacy and Colleen, are alternating days coming in, so no two people in an office at the same time, but they're getting the water bills out. Tony Murphy just finished processing the tax stuff. Ellen Pangburn is there every day. I cannot get this woman to go home because I worry about her, and she meets. I mean, she's doing everything safely, but I still worry that can be exposed like that. The court office is answering questions and answering mail. Regeneron got an exception, so they're an essential construction site. Our building department is doing inspections. Mary Hendrick comes in every Tuesday, does the vouchers. George Phillips comes in Wednesdays, cuts the check. I come in after that, sign the checks. So we're paying our bills. Everything is moving to the best of our ability. But we are social distancing. I do want to say that the people of East Greenbush have been amazing. The magnitude of social distancing that has occurred is really something. There are exceptions. Walmart's parking lot looks like, 2/3 or 3/4 of a normal day. What are people thinking? So we spoke to the county today. The county health department is going to pay Walmart a visit tomorrow because our Walmart hasn't been cordoning off non-essential products. People are wandering all over the place. So the county's going to go do an inspection, and then agriculture and markets, who actually oversee a Walmart, will come in and take a look at that, because we can't have that. In terms of East Greenbush people, a lot of people in that parking lot are not from East Greenbush. People have been distancing, as everyone here has said. People have been creative. People have been communal. Everybody understands what's going on here. We're coming into it now. When you look at the numbers, New York City is into its apex. Rensselaer County has 94 positive cases. We've had 31 people cleared their return to health. We've had 4 fatalities. And this is a hard time. None of us have seen anything like it. I hope none of us ever see anything like this again. But the one thing I want to say is, on a personal note, my daughter-in-law, Ashley Conway, is a nurse at St. Peter's. And I worry about her all day, every day. She's on the front lines. She's a professional. She's committed. She shows up. This is Ashley. She always shows up. She always does the job. I wish she didn't have to, but she's just one of hundreds and hundreds of people that everyone out here knows and is related to, who are walking into a plague on a daily basis on our behalf. We know our firefighters and our EMS guys and our cops are amazing, and that they keep us safe, they keep us protected. But right now, the front lines of this thing are in the hospitals. They have refrigerated tractor trailers behind hospitals, Samaritan Hospital, St. Peter's, for the volume of bodies that might have to be taken out of there. So nobody should underestimate the seriousness of this, but we have done great. The county has been tremendously supportive. We had a meeting this afternoon. We do it twice a week. The county executive, Steve McLaughlin, and Rich Christ, his director of operations, and all of the supervisors, mayors, etc., in Rensselaer County. We stay in touch. We find out if anybody needs anything, if anyone can help anyone else. Our governor has distinguished himself. He has just been on the case, knowledgeable, informative. And so as I look up the political ladder, we're in good hands. On the town level, this board is ready. We're ready. We've got this. Okay, so everybody take a deep breath. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. We're not getting out of our houses anytime very soon. Nobody wants to fathom a guess, but I'm telling you right now, nobody's getting out of their house before the end of May. And I think we know that now. And that's only the beginning. So what we got to do is, take a deep breath, hang loose. Town of East Greenbush, as has been said by the counselors and Ellen, this is a great community, and we're going to prove it. We're proving it now, and we'll continue to prove it. So with that, we're going to get back to the mundane business of running the town. I think this is very important that we're all here tonight and that we can carry on. There are some resolutions that'll be added after tonight, Dave. One of them will be, we have 2 tax cert cases. One of them, we need to retain outside counsel to represent us, and we want Bill Ryan, and we'll have a resolution to retain Bill Ryan for that case. And I'll send you all the details of the case. Dave, what were the other ones we were looking at?
Here, we got 2 resolutions. One is the Zoning Board of Appeals has been sued twice in the last 2 months. The first one we were able to work out, or we're working out with the petitioner's attorney. The second one is, and I think I had sent you the complaint in the other one with a humorous note that if you had extra time, you could read the 70 pages of it. That's the one that I think we need to hire Bill Ryan to handle. There was an the builder was seeking to build a house on a lot that's 0.83 acres. I believe the minimum size in that area or that section is 1.5 or something substantially larger. The variance was denied by the ZBA and we got sued. And we spoke to Jeff Pangburn and to their counsel, Bill Hesney. They're both firm that they did the right thing and they're positive, and it looks to me like they did. So that's what we're going to do, a resolution to hire Bill Ryan. There were 2 other things that Chief Rosinski brought to us, 2 separate agreements with other towns and municipalities. One is an agreement for cooperation in a SWAT team, and the other is a broader agreement for cooperation among police departments in responding to various kinds of emergencies. But I didn't get a chance to talk to you. I don't think I talked to you tonight, Jack. It looks to me the agreements as drafted give the authority to the police to enter into that, and the town law only lets the supervisor do it. So we're going to need a local law to authorize the chief to do it directly, okay? I mean,
so Dave, we'll schedule a public hearing then.
We'll do a public hearing on a local law saying it by May. We should be able to do the public hearing on this local law, adopt the local law, and adopt the 2 resolutions. So that won't be coming tomorrow. Sorry.
Oh, okay. We also are going back and forth on a resolution. Tina is formally appointed deputy supervisor. The question arises, if I get sick, we need to be sure that she has signing authority, so she can sign the checks, people can get paid, people can, business can carry on. And so Dave's original feeling was that it's actually covered because as the formally appointed deputy supervisor, that would fall to her. Right, Dave?
Yeah. But
George would like to firm it up.
Yeah. And George's concern is, well, Dave, what am I supposed to do? Go over to the bank and start waving around a copy of Section 42 of the town law, which I got to admit, having dealt with banks before, that's a little shaky. So I spoke to one of the councils at the Association of Towns. What she suggests, she said it's pretty clear that the board by resolution can't delegate this power to Tina in some sort of formal way. But her recommendation was get the paperwork from the relevant banks, put Tina on as a co-signer, which Jack can authorize. Then it's sitting there in the bank vault or the bank records or whatever. If it happens, Jack can make his own declaration that he's not able to handle the duties, hand it off to Tina. We can put that in a very quick letter or affidavit, and then we'll be set to go. I think George's concern, which I appreciate him thinking about, and rational, is if this happens and somehow it takes, because of the way everything is now, everything is like walking through mud now. I don't know if you've noticed this, but that we'd have to get the original forms to the bank. It would have to be approved. It could take 4 or 5 days maybe. If we have it on record with the bank, Tina can just take over right away. So that seems to me a good solution. I don't think we have to do a resolution.
Okay, good. Tina, that works for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just when you fill out the paperwork, don't forget to put Christine.
Yeah, George told me we have to see your license. We have to take a picture of it. So I want to see what picture you use on your license. Okay, so we could have a couple more resolutions coming. I'll send you all this stuff as it comes. If you have the agenda, let's start ripping through it. It's not that meaty an agenda at this point, but it does keep things moving. First is the resolution to approve the meeting minutes. And then we have 3 resolutions, proclamations and gestures of support. One is to declare May 11th through May 15th Police Week in East Greenbush. And I think that's in recognition specifically of officers who've fallen. And since Councillor Kennedy, among many, many other people, has a relative who falls in that category, this is an important resolution. And Holly, I'll change this so that you move this. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. I think that's the way to do that. The second one is child abuse prevention. We want to proclaim April Child Awareness of Child Abuse Prevention. One of the fears is that with people being stuck in houses with each other, most people get along to some degree. This could be a problem, and this is a good time to become very aware of child abuse and other forms of domestic violence. So there's that. And then the next resolution is raising awareness of sarcoidosis and declaring April also Sarcoidosis Month in the town of East Greenbush. If Rebecca Palacio is listening, this was something Rebecca brought to us. She suffers from this syndrome, and she's a great lady, and she's a warrior, and she's rocking and rolling because she has so much spirit. But she brought this to our attention, and we want to keep it alive because it's an important issue, and she's a great spokesperson for the issue. So if this was a regular meeting and we were at Town Hall, I'd make sure we invited Rebecca and all of that, but I'll make sure she knows we're doing this. Then Resolution 86 accepts the resignation of Ryan Buell from the police department. Ryan came to us from the Cambridge Police Department just a couple of months ago, but they have subsequently got funded for a canine unit, and apparently that was his dream as a police officer, so they weren't that happy about losing him, I guess, so they dangled that in front of him, and Ryan went back to the Cambridge department. So this resolution just does the formal paperwork process of accepting that resignation. 87 is surplusing another police car. These cars are out on the road 24/7, 365. They wear down. Probably the most important resolution here is 88, which is a resolution to authorize paving and surface treatment of town highways. If tomorrow we're going to get emails or phone calls, it'll be because people have seen the agenda and will either know or not know that their street is going to be paved. And so I want to put in a plug here because Hudson Avenue, where I live and where I'm sitting right now, is on the list. But I want you to know that this is not coming out of CHIPS money. It's part of the Hampton Manor Water Improvement Project. And what happens is first we got to dig up and replace the water line, and then this will do the paving over that. So the bottom of Hudson, where I live, will be freshly paved with a new water line when all of the work is done. And so my neighbors who tell me they only voted for me because they thought we'd get special treatment can now get off my back. But check out the list, Dan. If you have any questions, you know where Danny is. You know how to find him. Yep. Danny and Scott work on this stuff together. As you probably know, we inventory every road in town. We grade them, and we go worst to first. And there's no politics to it. There's no favoritism to it. We just do it technically and hopefully to some extent scientifically. Mm-hmm. So that's the list. So if you have any, questions or issues about it between now and next Wednesday is the time to raise those. Okay. The next one is approves a budget transfer. Since we didn't do the bowling program after school, we didn't do the Easter egg hunt. We haven't done Spotlight on Youth, although that's one I hope to hold in reserve for later in the year. If we can get back to business, that's the kind of event that can be a really, really cool event for a community that's healing and coming back together. But what this does is it transfers money within the department's budget so that some of that money can be used to make one of the field trips at summer camp all that we want it to be. All right, and 90, it's a good thing we have Adam here. Resolution 90 schedules a public hearing for and Dahlia too. Wait a minute. We have our MS4 coordinator and our MS4 officer with us, and this schedules a public hearing for the adoption of the 2020 annual report for general permit for stormwater discharges from MS4. I don't know what to do with this. In the resolution, it says May 13th, we'll have the public hearing. We're going to have to, Adam, you and Megan are going to have to put your heads together and come up with an ingenious way to hold public hearings, and online. And then if that's the case, we can actually do this when we say. What did I'm sorry, I just turned my video off. Scott Gallery told me I have a face for radio, so that was probably just as well. 91, Holly Kennedy, you are going to love. Did you read 91? Nice. It's a resolution expressing support for an application for technical assistance to prepare a feasibility study to enhance non-motorized transportation accessibility, mobility, and safety along the Gilligan Road corridor, and authorizing the use of GEIS recreation funds to support this study. The word there. Now, Adam, is there some question here as to what funds we're going to use for this?
Yeah, it should be traffic.
Transportation, traffic.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I'll fix that and send out the revised version tomorrow. But basically, what we're doing is we're starting down. If I can use the pun, we're starting down the path of trying to fix accessibility, a walkability issue on Gilligan Road. And Danny's met with, and Adam have met with the school district, who are very interested in the project as well. And since a lot of it's on their property, and they're going to fund a good part of it, we look forward to working with them.
Is a bike lane envisioned, do you think?
What's that?
Do you think a bike lane, when you say non-motorized transportation, would a bike lane be envisioned possibly, or maybe that's not feasible given the width?
Yeah, it's more of a side path for walking.
Just pedestrian?
Yeah,
Sure.
on the softball and golf school side of Gilligan.
Rick,
Sure,
if you want to go and look at the complete streets, information will give you more of what Adam and Dahlia have used as a guide.
Nice. Sounds good. Thank you.
Then resolution 92 makes appointments for summer camp, the directors of junior and senior camp, the assistant directors, and then the assistant activity and the assistant health directors. We've got our fingers crossed that we're still plowing ahead full speed with arrangements for summer camp. And we're going to be very optimistic about it. So,
sounds good.
The next resolution 93 authorizes the use of GEIS, and these are Parks and Rec funds, to replace the roof at the Hampton Manor Lake House. If any of you have been down there, it really is bad, and it needs replaced. Dan, right?
Yeah, it's been leaking for probably 4 years, especially in one certain spot where the chimney aligns with the roof. And there needs to be a return roof, which is called a cricket, that's built into it. So,
okay, and this will cover that.
That'll cover
sure
that and
what the
any
cricket was.
additional plywood that was needed.
Dan, Tina wants to know more about a cricket.
I was going to try to Google her house because I think she may have one on her house.
But follow up on that, Dan. If she has a cricket, let her know.
Okay.
What is it like? Is it like flashing, Dan?
Well, a cricket is a return roof. So if a roof runs flat into a chimney, then all that water is going directly into the chimney. So typically they would build a return roof and flash the chimney so the water wouldn't hit the chimney directly. It would actually, come down valleys. There'd be two valleys built.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
see, I could have explained that, but I decided to let Dan do that. Crickets to me, I hear in the grass. That's about it. Resolution 94 accepts the resignation for purposes of retirement of Steve Deo, who's been a dispatcher for the town for a long time, since 1989. And Steve's a gentleman. He's done a great job. He's earned his retirement, and so it's reluctant in the sense that we're losing a good man, but it's congratulatory in the sense that he's earned his leisure at this point. He'd been using up some of his time, so he's actually been replaced, and they're moving ahead. Although we still have two people in the pod, and I don't like it, but it's in their union contract, and they believe, and they know better than me, that to keep people safe in town, you need to have those two guys in there. So we're washing everything down on a daily basis. We're doing everything we can do. The other thing for the board to know is we've begun the process. We're going to paint, repaint, and recarpet Town Hall. We've funded that for the last couple of years, and we're going to take advantage of the fact that there's nobody in the building. It's a good time to do it, and it also allows us to keep moving forward. Because one of the most frustrating things about all of this, for me personally, is that I feel like this is a really strong board, and I feel like we're all really pretty experienced now. Up until this happened, I had a feeling that I kind of knew what I was doing, and I had this tremendous excitement about what we could accomplish in the second term. And come stumbling out of the gate like this is disappointing, but my disappointment in that is the least of everybody's worries. So I don't mean to pass it off as a burden, but so what we're doing is we're meeting, and we're moving, and we're working on the comprehensive plan, and we're doing all the big projects we can do. I have a meeting tomorrow with Megan Hart and Mary Hendrick to kick off the E-Code 360 project, because now they can have the run of the staff. They can have everything that has to be done. And if any of you know Megan and Mary and ever do the math of adding Megan to Mary and putting the two of them together, E-Code 360 is going to get done. There might be bodies strewn along the route, but those two will get it done. So what we're doing is we're trying to find the big projects so we can do big things, continue to make great progress, but do it at a distance, and do it this way, and do it the best we can. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. we have staff meeting. Yesterday we had like 18 or 19 people on the screen, and it was really good to see everybody. We boost each other's morale. Tomorrow, I think, Ellen, we have to bring recipes or something.
That's correct, Jack.
So, did you see George Phillips' proposal? Danny, did you see George's recipe?
I seen it.
Get one fresh camel? What was
camel?
Four lambs.
So we do that to stay in touch, to continue building the team, but also to talk to each other about anxiety or concerns. And so we go from there. All right, before we adjourn, does anybody have anything they want to bring up?
Yeah, I just thought, Jack, do you want to add to the agenda the Bruin fee schedule?
For next Wednesday?
Yeah.
You think we're ready?
I know we tabled it. I thought were we good with it after talking to Terry?
Are you good?
I didn't recall any from our meeting, any reticence or any issues where Terry was going to get back to us with further information. Did you, maybe I misunderstood.
No, I felt the same way. Rick, the thing I most wanted to get out of that meeting, besides how we can move forward, is I wanted to be sure that those prices that are listed in that resolution are the right prices. You know, how would I know what an advanced life support visit should cost? And I think Terry pretty much confirmed that those are kind of industry standard numbers. So,
sure, I wasn't aware of any other basis on which
So you want to put that back on?
if that's good for you, I guess I didn't have any other sense from the meeting that we were going to have any other basis on which to, adjudge the fees. So if you were comfortable with what Terry said, I guess I am as well.
Okay, I'll put that on. And that's the Bruin fee schedule that hasn't been approved in a number of years, but we're supposed to approve it every year. So we're going to approve it. Jim Bragg brought it to our attention, and so we'll act on that next week as well. Anything else?
I forgot one thing earlier.
Yep.
Just a reminder that we're all at home more and spending more time outside. The DEC still has a burn ban in effect. So keep the fire pits and fire contained for a little bit longer. We can start them up again in May after May 15th.
Okay.
When the burn ban ends.
Okay.
Jack, can I say one thing?
Of course.
I just wanted to give a shout out to our Zoom master, Adam Yagelski.
Yes, indeed.
Putting it all together. I get these emails and my eyes fade out after about the fifth line, but I know a lot of work went into it, and it's great. He sort of undertook to do it, and there he is. He's doing it, and it's done.
Yeah. Adam and Danny are built the same way. What you have to do is get them curious about something.
Yeah.
And once they're curious about something, they can't help themselves. So Adam has to start doing Zoom to keep his department moving forward. I'm sure he's probably one of the 7 leading experts on Zoom on the planet Earth by now. And that's what we did with Danny. We stuck him down at the treatment plant for a while because I knew he would become curious about how this thing is put together. And he did. And now he knows, Danny knows the wastewater treatment plant better than any commissioner of public works we've ever had. And I think Scott would back me up on that, because Scott and I tried to stay out of there as often as we could. But Danny figured out how it worked. So Adam and Danny, you gotta have curious employees and then make them curious. So thank you, Adam.
Good job, Adam.
Yeah. Tina, give him one. Good job, Adam.
Jack, Ellen's announcement early in the meeting may not have gone out on YouTube because I didn't have the sound up.
Okay. Ellen, you want to do that again? What services have been suspended?
Sure. Let me just pull up my notes here so I can, it will be all posted on the website as well.
Yep.
No, just, people are still reaching out to the town clerk's office for certain things. Some people's handicap tags have been expired. There's just a few things that we're not doing right now with town hall closed until further notice. Marriage licenses, notary services, and peddler's permit. General business, again, we're trying to use the green drop box out front for receiver of taxes, or the old snail mail, as some would say. So any phone calls or emails I receive, I'm just walking them through. Again, people are still, I'm mailing out a handful of transfer station permits or punch cards. I'll wait for someone to drop in the box if they do leave home. I encourage people just to drop them in the mail, but if they are heading out, they'll drop it in the box out front. Once I get their check, I'll mail them their permit and or punch card. And again, the handicap tags I am, mailing. And then a handful of Hudson Valley certificate of residencies forms. So I've been having people email me the necessary documentation. Once they're good to go, I'll have them mail them they'll mail me their certificate, and then I will sign and seal it and mail it back to them. So it's taking a little longer, but we're making it work because a lot of these kids, a lot of college kids home, they're looking to get into online classes soon. That with the next, might be beginning of May, that Hudson Valley has their next online classes starting. So, and they need that certificate. So, via mail, we're making it work. And dog licenses, my deputy, Michelle Eckler, she had sent a cover letter with the last month. It'll go out again this month for anyone with dog license renewals, because a lot of people, and we had almost 80 or 90 that were expired end of March. So it's a lot of letters we're sending out for renewals, and a lot of people do stop in to, hey, renew their license. But we're having Michelle did a great cover letter, and I've been getting a lot of mail in for those renewals. And again, all this information will be posted on the website. I've been working. It's there is a need. If nothing's urgent, but again, what's needed, it's, I'm there and I'll return voicemails or emails. So all the information will be on the website.
Excellent. And for the rest of you, I know you know this, but let me just put the focus on this. Ellen's been the town clerk for 3 months. And to have a situation like this land on her this early in a term where she's learning the job, thank God we have Michelle Eckler, but Ellen has been working hard, and I have to say, I knew she'd be good, but even I'm surprised at exactly how good she is at this job. But Ellen, thank you for the work you're doing, because you're working harder than anyone, and you're keeping an office moving that really is the nuts and bolts of what we do. And it's very much appreciated. I think I speak for the whole board. Everything you've done has just been excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, Rick, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say you're great, Ellen.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Supervisor Conway?
Yes.
Councillor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councillor Tierney?
Yes.
Councillor Matters?
Yes.
Councillor Fritz?
Yes.
Okay, guys, we're done. Thank you, Dave, Dan, Adam. Thank you so much.